Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, you and the ranking member for having today's hearings, continuing this very important conversation. Director Whitaker, thank you for the work that you're doing. I want to pick up a little bit on Senator Hawley's sort of line of questioning around the inspectors on the floor, the sort of ratios, and so how confident are you in getting that right? We know that following the door plug incident in the Alaskan Airlines plane in January, we referred to it as the January 5th incident here. But the FAA has talked a lot about deploying more inspectors to the Boeing plants across the country. I think we just talked specifically about one in particular. Can you just, in the aggregate, tell us how many inspectors that have been deployed across Boeing manufacturing facilities, and how does that compare to pre the January 5th incident?
Thank you, Senator. So pre-January 5th, our focus was not on actual boots on the ground inspection. It was much more of an audit approach and not intermingling our staff with what was going on the floor. So that was a big change we made after January 5th. I have visited a couple of these facilities and walked with the inspectors. The total target, to answer your direct question, is 55 by the end of the year. We're at 46 right now, and we expect to hit the 55. Basically, it's 13 in any of the three big Boeing facilities, and then 16 in various supplier facilities. And the way it typically works is they walk from station to station. They talk with the people who are doing the work. When they have questions, they ask them to show them where their work instructions are and where their tools are. And right now we feel like that gives us a pretty good visibility into the factory. We get this question a lot, is that enough? And I've gone back several times and said, are we sure this is enough? And so we are continuing to monitor that. But right now we feel like we're getting pretty good engagement, but we will up that number if we need to.
Well, let's talk about that engagement, because I just want to understand, like, what does that mean? Like, when someone is asked to perform a duty or a task, there's a concrete outcome that is being expected that defines success. So can you talk to us a little bit about what concrete results do you expect from these investigators? Maybe that'll help us all understand whether 11 is enough.
So a typical investigator would join in the morning meetings as a shift starts, where they talk about problems that may have been on the line or areas of focus. They'll focus on key inspection points or key issues that have come up in audits to see how the employees are doing, whether they feel like they've got enough training and enough tools to do their work. Boeing is deploying, as part of the comprehensive plan, a new tool tracking technology and a new part tracking technology. So those are pilot programs that are rolling out, so the employees are being trained on that, and they're watching how that program rolls out as well.
So if I heard you correctly, they are expected to go to meetings, review audits, and talk to employees. I don't want to oversimplify it. I just want to make sure that I'm getting it accurate.
I mean, that's in addition to their normal certification duties, which are structuring the audits and filling out the forms related to audits and that type of thing, yes.
Okay, and so how do you then take those specific outcomes and turn them into signals, reports, feedback? How do you take what you're experiencing or what you're learning through those investigators, through their sort of three focused areas of return for the agency, and then turn that into something that ensures greater confidence for the public? Help us understand A, B, and C, which is where the ultimate end is greater public confidence in the product that Boeing is putting out.
So the inspectors would hold weekly meetings with the management. They would give feedback on what their findings are, and they would have an exchange on that. And then their findings also would be plugged into future audits. So if they're seeing areas of concern, they know where they can move their focus going forward. So get me to the end product, because what I'm trying to figure out, Director, is
one of, not the only, but one of the big changes, big shifts since the January 5th incident is the deployment, the shift in strategy at the FAA in its oversight, the biggest shift being the deployment of these inspectors. If this is the biggest strategic shift that the oversight agency is making, how do we get from how are we assessing whether or not this was the right strategic shift and communicating that then to the American public, to airlines, to oversight bodies like this? What is it exactly that these inspectors, that we're learning from these inspectors? Maybe I can phrase it that way. What are we learning from these inspectors in the three things that you've asked them to do? Go to the meeting, review the audits, talk to the employees. How is that conferring to greater public confidence and much and stronger oversight? I'm just trying to, again, understand this is the biggest shift that you made. And one of, I understand many, but I do want to understand is the biggest shift that you made. How does that get us to the end point that we want, which is the greater confidence, a stronger product, and better protected workers?
Well, let me back up a bit. I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as the biggest shift that we made. It's one of a number of changes, and I think one of the key things that we do now is we have these 6 key performance index metrics that we're monitoring constantly. We monitor them on a weekly basis. Those 6 metrics tie directly into the comprehensive plan and tell us how Boeing is doing on the comprehensive plan, and that deals with things like employee training. It deals with things like traveled work, work that's done out of order, work that has to be redone, so we can actually measure the quality of the production line through these 6 metrics. The work that the inspectors do is very linked to that. Their feedback goes into those metrics, and those metrics are also tied to the production cap that we've put in place. So I would say that the changes that have been put in place for Boeing and oversight are pretty widespread, and the inspectors on the ground are one part of that, but they feed into the other pieces of the plan. But
my time has expired. I just want to make the point that we don't know, the inspectors are the only eyes and ears that you've articulated that actually help us to assess whether any of those other things are actually being met. And so if I just wanted to help the people here and this subcommittee understand, if this is the biggest single investment into making all of this other stuff work, how is it that we are measuring the success, concretely, how are we measuring the success of this big strategic shift or tactical shift, if that's a better way to describe it, that then flows into all of the rest of the accountability metrics that we're holding to Boeing? I understand my time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I just would love to follow up with you, Director, to understand that better.
Happy to do that.
Thanks, Senator Butler.